Greetings, my name is Chamomile, and this is an exploration of the entire galaxy sector by sector. Today we're looking at Prefsbelt Sector, an 8th Bright Jewel command of the new territories of the Outer Rim. Prefsbelt Sector has all kinds of weird planets. Karlak is a planet home to the Ming Po, allegedly a species native to the planet. I don't buy it, these are just humans who are on the short side. Height is genetic, you can have a country of kinda short humans without branching off into a new species. Also, the planet's total population is like 10,000, which is puny for a species homeworld. Death Watch took the whole planet over during the Clone Wars, and some Jedi and clone troopers came and fought them off at great cost. The confirmed species in this sector, the official semi-sovereign rulers of the sector under the traditions of the Old Republic, are the Yagai species of Yaga Minor. They're insectoids with 3 legs who were enslaved by the Empire. As 8th Bright Jewel was skirmishing with the New Republic to determine where the border between the two nations was ultimately going to be, Yaga Minor was identified as a potential threat, since a revolt there could bite off Prefsbelt Sector entirely and bring the New Republic into the Outer Rim. There's no physical reason why the New Republic couldn't advance into the Outer Rim, but the Rim boundary was the last obvious stopping point, so if the New Republic didn't stop there, they might just keep going until the Imperial Remnant was completely crushed. The Imperial Remnant backed off of their oppression of the Yagai in hopes of keeping things stable, although it's hard to say for sure how much of this reform was real and how much of it was just propaganda, especially once the First Order took over a few decades later. Speaking of the First Order, Haze Minor is a planet they targeted for abduction to fill out the ranks of their Stormtrooper Corps for years before they officially declared their existence. There's a ton of planets like this in the Imperial Remnant and unknown regions nearby, but this is the one that Rose and Paige Tico are from, so I guess that's neat. Rose is the dumbest rebel of all time, but she did show up to fight, and, I mean, that's more than most people in the galaxy did to fight the First Order, so. Another sort of confirmed species in this sector are the natives of Yorgrax, a planet conquered by a Sith exile who enslaved and ultimately exterminated the native species here during the Old Republic era. This was unknown regions back then, and Sith who lose power struggles in Sith space have a long tradition of retreating to the unknown regions with their remaining followers, becoming warlords out amidst the minor alien empires out there, and scheming to return to power. This particular exile was Quarlak Fornay, who bred an army of flying mutant rancors called Koloi, but by the time Quarlak finished making them, he was on his deathbed. It's not clear how many Koloi there were, but there are unconfirmed sightings of them as far away as Naboo and as recently as the Late Republic era, which suggests a breeding population does exist and has spread throughout the galaxy. The Trigas Corporation tried to set up a dirigible-based mining operation on planet Nosken, but it fell through. Why dirigibles? Gas giant mining platforms are a solved problem. Why are they trying to reinvent the wheel here? I guess maybe dirigibles are cheaper than repulsor lifts? Repulsor lifts are pretty cheap, so I find that hard to believe, but they're not free, so I guess it's possible. The Old Republic's primary naval academy was on Prefsbelt 4, established there after the overthrow of the Contispex dynasty that held the Supreme Chancellorship for generations during the Pius Dea era. The new academy was established as part of an effort to rebuild the Republic Navy from scratch, although Anaxes would eventually come to overshadow Prefsbelt in naval significance once more. Prefsbelt remained just on the Imperial side of the border between the 8th Bright Jewel Remnant and the New Republic, so it's become the primary naval academy for them once again, though this isn't a great pedigree for the Empire to be drawing upon, being the naval academy established specifically to reject the authoritarian, rabidly pro-human Pius Dea movement. The Republic under Pius Dea isn't the same as the Empire, but it had more in common with the Empire than it does with the New Republic. According to rumor, there was an Imperial bioweapons project on planet Kanji 7 to create a zombie plague that escaped containment and took out the entire Star Destroyer Vector while it was making a milk run with various experimental samples for the project. That's a cool rumor, but also it was an entry in the ever-popular historical drama genre of holovids back during the big zombie craze, so maybe someone dug up a real zombie story to make a historical drama from, but also maybe they just made shit up. They do that sometimes, that's allowed. Speaking of weird rumors, I guess now's as good a place as any to address the Yuuzhan Vong. Borosk was one of the several Imperial Remnant worlds allegedly invaded by the Yuuzhan Vong during a war that, very definitely didn't happen. The Outer Rim being what it is, I get why people fell for this early on, but insisting that there was an entire galaxy-spanning war that's been covered up is just, come on. That didn't happen. I said back in the 6 Black Sword videos that the Yuuzhan Vong might be a real species that crawled up out of the unknown regions to cause some trouble on the fringe of the Empire, and that's true here in 8th Bright Jewel as well, particularly the Outer Rim regions where the Imperial Remnant would have been very eager to cover up any signs of weakness. This would explain both why Yuuzhan Vong raids or even planetary invasions would have been disappeared from the galactic record, and why the power of the Yuuzhan Vong would have been exaggerated to the point of being a galactic threat. The Imperial Remnant didn't have its propaganda story straight and eventually settled on "it never happened," rather than trying to exaggerate the scale of the Yuuzhan Vong threat to avoid losing legitimacy for having been bloodied by them. The timing of the so-called Yuuzhan Vong War is also right before the Cold War between the First Order and the New Republic began, so maybe it comes out of garbled reports of some dark side juju that the Knights of Ren were getting up to, or even just some weird hats they wore. I'm speculating madly here. The Empire is really opaque, and while the New Republic has declassified a ton of Imperial records from Coruscant that describe what Bright Jewel was doing during the Imperial era, information from the Imperial remnants after the liberation of Coruscant is limited to what leaks out of the assorted police states clinging to the Outer Rim. Anyway, story goes that the Yuuzhan Vong emerged from outside the galaxy in Dalnobian Sector over at 9th Brazen Petard Command, and then swung spinwards through Moonalinst before the Imperial Remnant halted their advance at Borosk here in Prefsbelt Sector. And I can't help but notice that the initial point of the invasion was conducted by crashing a moon into a planet rather than an actual planetary invasion, something which conveniently looks a lot like a gravitational natural disaster. That the Imperial Remnant's participation in the war is primarily in planets like Moonalinst and Borosk that are very close to the unknown regions, and that the years-long string of disastrous New Republic defeats throughout the Outer Rim and core are all things that definitely, verifiably did not happen. So, my outside guess is that the Yuuzhan Vong conquered Moonalinst and Bastion and maybe even got as far as Dubrillion. 8th Bright Jewel spun a wild story about a galaxy in crisis to avoid admitting that their Imperial remnant was so small and weak that it was at risk of being finished off by a minor alien empire from the unknown regions, and then the Imperial remnant broke the invaders at Borosk, and their propagandists put a bow on the whole crisis and swept it under the rug, putting the whole embarrassment behind them to focus on the emerging First Order. I also find it notable that supposedly children of Han Solo and Princess Leia fought the Yuuzhan Vong and humiliated themselves early on, but later became heroes of the New Republic's belated efforts to fight the alien menace, and that this happens to take place at the exact same time when Ben Solo left Luke's new Jedi Order to join the Knights of Ren. Still speculating, but the timeline for so-called Jason Solo's role in the narrative, switching from fuck-up to hero, happens to map really well to the time when Ben Solo went rogue and became Kylo Ren.